HarperCollins and Harper Audio present Valentine in Montreal, a novel, by Heather O'Neill, read by Jean Ann Douglas. A note from the author. The editor-in-chief of the Montreal Gazette, Bert Archer, contacted me and invited me for lunch one afternoon in the spring of 2023. He asked if I would like to write a serialized novel for the newspaper. I thought it was a terrible idea, one that might drive me mad, but I said yes immediately. I had always been intrigued by serialized publication, which reached an apex in Victorian times. It was at a moment when the literary rate in England had exploded, but novels were still prohibitively expensive. By publishing stories in chapters sold in green covers, or in newspapers and magazines, fiction suddenly became available to all people from all walks of life. Books and literature were no longer for the elites and aristocrats. Charles Dickens, who became the most popular writer of this genre, had had a poor and difficult childhood, and he brought readers scenes from the underclasses, giving them the dignity of the rich. I had read all his novels by the time I graduated high school, because I too had grown up with nothing, but considered myself an aristocrat with something to say. I loved the idea of Victorian readers having access to the chapters as the writer was producing them. I liked stories of readers rioting because they wanted the next installment. When Charles Dickens was writing The Old Curiosity Shop, he had a character named Nell, a charming, pathetic child whom readers adored. But she was getting sicker and sicker with each chapter. Readers begged him not to let Nell die. He was in spiritual agony when he murdered Nell, and readers rioted, of course. Some writers of serial novels wrote their works first and chopped them into chapters. Some wrote them weekly and would later edit them in order to make a more polished novel. I wanted to do it in a way where I would write each chapter the week before it was published, and not change anything when it came to publishing it as a whole. It seemed like more of a challenge, more ludicrous. And I liked mistakes in old serial novels, like how in Daniel Defoe's Moll Flanders, the titular character pulls out a watch she had sold in a previous chapter. I decided it would take place in the Montreal subway system. One of my favorite periods in Montreal history was the Quiet Revolution in the 1960s, when so many sculptors and painters and poets emerged from this working-class movement. It was around this time the metro was built, and each station was designed by a different artist. But I also chose the subway system because all the subscribers of the newspaper would have a chapter take place at their own metro stop. Then Valentine came to me. In true Dickensian spirit, she is an orphan. She is a young woman who experienced a childhood characterized by neglect and poverty. But she loves life, even though no one has ever done anything for her. Valentine is a philosopher of the everyday. Despite having a sad childhood, her joy has survived intact. Strangers are Valentine's family. And that's why she was the perfect protagonist to invite into people's homes for breakfast. I was conscious that the chapters would be arriving Saturday morning, and would be read by families drinking coffee and eating eggs, and having a moment to themselves. There are some characters I would not let into people's homes. Even the gangsters in this story are fun and will ask for a bite of your donut. Each chapter also had to exist on its own, so that a reader who had not been following could read the chapter and enjoy it. I wrote chapters all over the world. I could never take a week off, so I found myself writing in hotels, on planes, in parks and cafes. I would scribble the chapters wherever I was. I loved the urgency of it. Jordan Zivitz was my editor at the Gazette, or, as we liked to call him, the keeper of the narrative. He would point out all the inconsistencies, which always made us laugh. Because I was going to be working on the book nonstop for 6 months, I had to have a world that was fun to be in. So I deliberately filled it with a circus-like atmosphere. It is a book filled with my favorite things: ballet and donkeys and
Sample complete. Ready to continue?